Okay, hi there, welcome to my 50.2 sport injuries. So the introduction, I'm going to be talking about injuries that happen in sport and how they are dealt with by the body's physiological and psychological adaptations. I'll also be talking about how injuries are treated. So there are 5 different physiological responses that the body has to injury. You've got inflammation, pain, accumulation of fluid, so swelling, increased blood flow, and tender to touch. And then you've also got bruising, so you have intermuscular hematoma and intramuscular. Intermuscular hematoma is when damage is done to the muscle, causing blood to escape into the surrounding tissue. And intramuscular is when the blood is trapped inside the injury and is not spread across the whole limb like intermuscular does. So you can see some cases where intermuscular, if you have a leg injury, it can spread up the whole side of the leg, whilst intramuscular stays within the area. The blood clotting process. So this is when you have been cut, and a small cut, and it is what you most commonly refer to as a scab. The platelets are activated by chemicals when they sense there is a cut in the skin. The platelets then rush to that area and become sticky. And that causes the blood to then clot and stick to the surface of the vessels, which then creates a small layer over it. And then the clot stops any more blood escaping, and then fibrin covers the clotted area and acts as reinforcement until the injury is then healed, and then scar tissue covers over the original cut. So there are also 3 stages of healing. You've got the inflammatory response phase, and this is just as soon as the injury is done, and something like an ankle injury, it will flame up because there's fluid rushing into the injured area, restricting the movement. And this is so no further damage is done, because the brain doesn't want any more movement to happen within the damaged area. The repair phase, this is what happens a few hours after the injury and can last up to 6 weeks, with some really serious injuries. It involves the damaged tissue being rebuilt and the healing of the damaged areas. This is done by what you've just seen in the clotting process. And then finally, there's the remodeling phase. This is where scar tissue develops, and it will copy the tissue that was there prior to the injury. So if it's treated properly and that you don't pick it or it's not taken off aggressively, then long-term scars will not occur and you'll be fine. And the range of movement will also be put back to normal because the skin before was making it unable to stretch properly. So moving on to the psychological responses of pain, I've chosen to do depression, fear, motivational issues, anger, and decreased confidence. So the way in which depression plays a part in psychological responses and injuries is that, with professional and elite athletes, they dedicate their whole lives and their whole career to it because it's what they love to do. And if they're stopped doing this by an injury, then this can make them really depressed because they are being stopped doing something they love by something that's not their choice and not necessarily always their fault either. Um, Fear is, the way that fear plays a part in injuries is because the moment the injury happens, you are going to be worried about what you've done, in case you've done something that is going to put you out for weeks or months or worse, like years or a whole career even. So, for example, if you take a bad tackle in football and instantly feel pain, so you know you've done something and you can't walk on it, you're going to be really scared about what you've done, and that's going to strike fear into you straight away. Motivational issues. The way in which your motivation can be affected by injuries, for example, with someone like Jack Wilshere, the former England midfielder, he's constantly injured, and it seems as soon as he comes back from rehab for one injury, he has straight away stopped playing by another injury. So for some people who go through this type of injury, it could really affect their motivation to want to go back into yet another rehab and try and recover from it again. If they're so injury prone, they almost would feel, what's the point? They're not as fired up to really get back playing if they know they're just going to get injured again. Uh, Anger, the way in which anger plays a part in injury is because, again, if you're someone who's constantly injured, then every time you get injured, there's a chance it's going to make you really angry at yourself, at other people, just at the all around general situation, because you know you're going to be stopped playing your sport again. And this obviously cause all kinds of emotions for athletes because you'll be really just angry that you're being stopped doing something that you love to do, which is a normal response. And finally, decreased confidence. So when you get injured from something, for example, such as going up for a header in football, for a contested header with someone, and you get injured doing this, say you land and sprain your ankle and really badly, and it keeps you out for months, then this could really make you reluctant to do it again when you return from injury, and so you have a big decrease in confidence. So you'll be less confident. Say if that opportunity were to come up in a game again, you're going to be really reluctant. You'll hold back from doing that because you just won't be as confident about going to that situation in case you get injured again. So as far as an athlete who suffered from an injury, I've chosen Derrick Rose. He suffered from a torn ACL in the 2014-2015 season. The ACL is one of the four main ligaments in the knee that connects the femur to the tibia. The role of the ACL is to stop the femur sliding out in front of the tibia, and is to stop the tibia sliding out in front of the femur. So Rose's physiological responses to this injury would be that it would be next to impossible for him to put pressure on the leg he did it on as soon as it happened. And he actually did the injury landing on it after jumping high to get around the defender. As far as recovering from an ACL, the injury requires rest for the first 0 to 2 weeks of the injury taking place. You'll also be doing exercises to rotate the joints and move the muscles around so they're constantly active and just slowly rebuilding in the early weeks. After around 2 to 4 weeks of the surgery to reset the ACL, or sometimes even replace the tendon with something like a sheep tendon to just completely replace the tendon altogether. After around 2 weeks after surgery, he would have been able to put a bit of weight on it, maybe just walk short distances with minimal pain. And then after around 2 to 6 months of putting partial pressure on the injury, he would be able to start rehab. And this is where he'll really be putting the tendon and muscles through their paces to really try and build them up as quick as he can and get him back to playing as soon as possible. So the responses that Derrick's body to this injury is that there would have been a lot of pain in the moment it happened because the ACL was completely torn, and this would activate his pain receptors, which would make his brain cause his body to experience pain in that area of his knee because it's going to want to avoid any movement there from that moment onwards. Excuse me. The psychological responses to the injury are that being an injury-prone player, Derrick Rose will be very depressed by it because he was being stopped playing for the Chicago Bulls team that was really struggling at the time. He was a key player. This would have made him really depressed, angry, but I'm sure he would have been very motivated to get back, which he did. The second athlete I've chosen to do is Luke Shaw. This was a recent injury. In the 2014 to 2015 season again, he suffered a broken leg injury in the Europa game. He was slide tackled from the side, and the left leg was instantly broken on impact of the tackle. The physiological responses to a broken leg would be that there is a chance that the leg could swell around the area of the break because the body would want to restrict range of motion so no further damage could be done. It would also be extremely tender to touch in order again to just avoid further injury. He would also be able to put no pressure on it straight after the injury had happened because the bone was literally snapped in half. He wouldn't have been able to apply any without serious pain, so he would have just gone straight down. The psychological responses he would have had is that he would have been very angry that it happened because it was not his error even that caused the injury. He was running and was tackled by someone else, so that would have made him really frustrated and angry. He would also have been very depressed because at the time he was being called up to the England squad every international break, and for it to be suddenly stopped, playing for United, starting 11 and playing for England when he broke his leg would have been very heartbreaking, especially for a young player like Luke Shaw was. However, he is not normally known as a hugely injury-prone player, so he would have most likely been fully motivated to attend the rehab and try and get back safely to be able to play soon as he possibly could, because he would have wanted to prove that he would not lose the form he was on before the injury happened. So that sums up my video. Thank you for watching.